Welcome to the Embrace Strength podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Crocker. I am an experienced trainer and active life professional. I work with people who are struggling with nagging pain to get back to the activities they love without fear of re-injury. This podcast is here to educate and provide value to you on all things health, fitness, staying active, and personal development. Let's dive in.
Hello, welcome back to the podcast, and today I'm going to be talking about flare-ups. And something happened to me yesterday that I was thinking about it, and I'm like, this situation is parallel to like a client going through a flare-up. So I'm going to tell you a bit of a story about what happened in my day yesterday, and then I'm going to connect it to flare-ups. All right, so hang with me for a second because it's all going to tie together. Okay, so yesterday, I woke up and I could not get access into my business Google Drive. And if anyone is listening to this that is also an entrepreneur, you probably understand this. Like, I use Google Drive for everything. All of my business brain, as I like to call it, is on my Google Drive. You know, all my spreadsheets, any documents, any to-do lists, and notes for things, and everything is on there. So I was very stressed when I woke up and I did not have access to anything. And I also wasn't able to regain access yesterday. Basically, what had happened was I had to get a new card, and I hadn't changed my payment information in here, and Google Workspace merged with Squarespace, and so then I had to be contacting Squarespace to update my payment info, but like it wouldn't update. Like I was trying multiple different cards and it just wouldn't update in Squarespace. It kept giving me an error. I kept emailing with no response, and finally got in touch with someone at the end of the day, and they were like, I'm connecting you to the right people, but we're experiencing high volume, so it's gonna be a while. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So this morning I was doing some research on my own, and I was actually able to transfer my billing back to Google, so I was able to regain access this morning, so it's all okay. But yesterday I was freaking out because all my business stuff is on there, and it was day one of programming through pain, like my new group program. All of my notes for the first week were in there, and luckily I know the information super well, and so I still ran the call, but I wasn't able to like regularly screen record the call because I use Google Meet and it wasn't letting me screen record, and so then I had to like record the call in a voice memo on my phone so the people who weren't at the call could catch the replay. And it was just a bit of a makeshift situation, but I chose to rise to the occasion and make it work. And I had originally planned to write content yesterday, and I wasn't able to because, well, I wrote a post for the day, but I wasn't able to like batch create because my plan was in the Google Drive. So I had to reorganize at the last minute, but I still managed to get a lot done yesterday, even with the wrench that was thrown into my plans, and I could have let it derail me the whole day and like let my brain go into a spiral worrying about like, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to get back in? Like, what do I do? Blah, blah, blah. Like, but I prevented myself from going into a spiral, and I was like, hey, what am I able to do? I can still do all my client work I needed to do. I can do some back end stuff I had been putting off, and I'm still going to run this day one call. I'm not going to reschedule it because I can make it work. And I just rose to the occasion, even though it was very difficult. It would have been easier to just let the whole day go to shit and me spend it spiraling. And the reason why I am sharing this with you guys is because I was thinking about it and I'm like, this situation is parallel to clients that I have who go through flare-ups. And if you're dealing with pain or working on getting out of pain, you've probably had a flare-up. And honestly, flare-ups are part of the process. If you're an entrepreneur, shit's gonna go wrong like all the time. At least once a week, you're gonna have multiple fires to put out. And that's just part of the process. And it all depends on how are you going to react, okay? So now we're moving into talking about flare-ups, okay? Your mind can immediately go to, oh my gosh, this is not part of my plan. What's happening? Am I regressing? Am what I'm doing is not working? Should I go to the doctor? Do I take medicine? Like, all of these things start to go through your head. And if you do not have a coach for support to help guide you through, you can lose a lot of time going through worst case scenarios when in reality, you probably don't even need to entertain some of those worst case scenarios ideas because it's part of the process and you can get through it. It's all about how you move through it. Okay. So when you're going through a flare up, you have two options. You can either retract and let yourself spiral, or you can rise to the occasion and not let yourself spiral. And if you have a coach, it's a lot easier to rise up and not let yourself spiral because they can help guide you through it safely. We can talk you down. I can talk you down. I actually had one of my clients went through another flare up this past week, and this was actually probably one of the worst flare-ups that she's had during our time working together. And here's what we did. I was like, all right, what makes it feel good? Like, is there any position that feels comfortable? And what makes it hurt worse? And for her, like, it was uncomfortable to like get on the floor and get back up. So I'm like, okay, we need to do things seated. But in my mind, I'm like, all right, we have to try and get blood flow going, but without irritating it too much to where she starts regressing and getting worse. So what I ended up doing, since she was like very sensitive, I just gave her some seated, so she told me that rounding her back felt really good. So what I gave her for some homework was this sequence of like seated, rounded back movements with breathing. And I had her do that a couple times a day. And pairing that with breathing is so important, because what's happening when your body's having a flare up is your nervous system is like in freak out mode. Oh my gosh, we are not safe. So we are going to tighten up as much as possible to protect ourselves. And using your breath is one of the easiest ways to calm down your nervous system and be like, hey bro, it's okay. We are safe. And so whenever I'm guiding a client through a flare up, we are almost always doing deep breathing paired with an exercise to tell the nervous system, hey, you can calm the heck down, okay? And so I had her do that for a couple of days and just had her keep me posted each day. You should be getting a little bit better each day as you're going through a flare up. You should not be getting worse. And so that is another thing. Like, when you have me as your coach and you're going through a flare up, I am checking in on you like every freaking day to make sure that we are moving in the right direction. So for the first 2 days, she was hurting pretty bad, but she was starting to slowly improve each day. By day 3, she was able to also go for a walk. And I was also having her do some ice and heat alternating. I don't do that all the time with flare-ups, but for this one I did, and it really helped her move through it. But anyways, so a little bit each day we added in a little bit more movement in terms of walking, continuing to do what was working. And then by day 4, I think it was, I gave her a very light upper body workout so that she could be getting in some movement, but we're not going to do anything to piss off the back. We're not going to do any lower body. We're just going to get some blood flow going to see like how your body reacts. And she felt good. And so since after that, I gave her a light lower body workout to do. Same idea. We're doing just body weight stuff. We're doing easy stuff. We're incorporating breathing to make sure that it is not something that makes her regress, okay? And after that, she continued to feel better. So I'm like, okay, we are getting back to mostly normal training now. So what I did was I adjusted her workouts and I took the volume down a little bit. I took the weights down a little bit so that her training was mostly normal, but obviously adjusted since we had just gone through a flare-up. And this is just so important for people to hear, because I think that a lot of times when people have flare-ups when they're trying to rehab, they just don't move at all and lay on the couch. And that is gonna be that's okay in the beginning, but you have to do some work to get blood flow going and tell your nervous system it is okay and that it is safe. And so this is where having a coach comes into play when you are trying to get out of pain, because it's I can guide you exactly what to do so that you don't even have to think about it. I'm okay, here's exactly what I ask you questions and I'm here's exactly what we're going to do. Give me an update tomorrow. Just that major support there when you're going through a flare-up is so key. I also want to note that every flare-up is different. This specific client that I'm talking about, she has also had a flare-up while working with me before. And what we did was different than what we did this time because her previous flare-up was not as bad. And so that's another thing, is that what you do for the flare-up, if it happens more than once, is going to change depending on how you're feeling and what it feels like and all of those things. And so again, that's where having support from a professional comes into play, so that you don't have to worry too much about that, because you already have enough on your plate in terms of your job and your house responsibilities and your life responsibilities and all of that. So to kind of tie this all up in a bow, when you go through something unexpected, whether it be this work situation that I mentioned that I had yesterday, or a flare-up, you have two options. You can retract and freak out and let yourself spiral and waste a whole day, or you can rise up and ask yourself, what is within my control? What can I do? What is actually going to be helpful in moving me through what I am going through right now? And if you are someone who resonates with this, you've been going through trying to rehab on your own, you don't know how to move through flare-ups, you always freak out, and you are ready to get to the root of why you're even dealing with that pain in the first place, then send me a message and let's get an assessment. That is step one with anyone that I work with, is going through an assessment to find all the puzzle pieces that are contributing to why you're feeling the way that you are. Because once we have all those puzzle pieces, we can create a plan to get you out of pain and get you stronger to be able to get back to the things that you want to do. So if you listened to this episode and you enjoyed it, send it to a friend, or you can send me a message on Instagram and let me know. Ashley Crocker 127 is my handle, and I will see you next time.